Catherine Howard did not fall in love in a fairy tale court. She fell into a system built to watch, record, and punish. And somewhere inside that glittering machine, behind the tapestries, between the footsteps, inside the tiny windows of borrowed privacy, a young queen let herself want one thing that did not belong to her. It is England, 1540. The court is loud with music and velvet and polite laughter, but underneath it is fear, practiced and permanent. Catherine Howard becomes queen at an age when most people are still being warned not to message the wrong man after midnight. Instead, she marries Henry VIII, nearly 30 years older, increasingly unwell, and already famous for what happens to wives who stop being useful. On paper, it looks like renewal. Youth beside power, beauty beside authority. A king, insisting time has not beaten him. In reality, time has already placed its hand on Henry's shoulder and tightened its grip. He hides it behind ceremony. He disguises it with pageants, jewels, and a very young bride. Catherine arrives at court, bright-eyed and unseasoned, and instantly, she is surrounded. Not embraced, surrounded. She is attended constantly, followed discreetly, interrupted efficiently. Doors open when they are meant to open, and close only when permission has been granted. Queenship does not come with privacy. Privacy is a controlled substance, rationed out by other people. Henry, meanwhile, adores her loudly. Publicly, he is generous to the point of performance, gifts, compliments, endless attention. Catherine becomes proof, displayed like a jewel, that the king is still desirable, still virile, still in command of his kingdom and his body. Privately, he is busy with pain, illness, and the humiliating truth that absolute power does not prevent aging. It simply gives you better mirrors. So Catherine fills her days inside a court that excels at spectacle, but has very little interest in companionship. And that matters, because Tudor affairs rarely begin with sweeping passion. They begin with opportunity. Henry's court runs on routine. Predictable movements, predictable schedules, predictable people. Everyone knows where they are meant to be, and when they are meant to be there. Deviations are noticed. Absences are remembered. This is not chaos. It is a machine, elegant and unforgiving. Catherine learns the machine quickly. She learns when Henry sleeps heavily. She learns how long it takes servants to make their rounds. She learns which ladies retire early and which linger, not because they are wicked, but because sometimes lingering is the only choice you have when your life is made of waiting. She learns which corridors empty after dusk and which corridors keep memory, as if stone can remember footsteps. This is not scheming. This is orientation. Being queen does not grant Catherine autonomy. It grants her visibility. Her body, her reputation, even her stillness belongs to the crown. Henry does not share what he believes he owns, and queens, historically speaking, fall squarely into that category. The court has been shaped by paranoia for years. One wife quietly discarded, another publicly erased. Trust did not survive those experiments. Surveillance did. And here is the irony. The more closely Catherine is watched, the more sophisticated any private life must become. Secrecy at court is never accidental. It is planned, timed, managed. Contrary to the story that will later be told by the men desperate to stay alive, Catherine is not reckless. She is young, isolated, and married to a man who offers ceremony instead of intimacy. Loneliness at court is subtle. It does not sob. It waits. It arrives during long evenings of forced stillness, when nothing is required of you except patience, and the court, ever obliging, supplies proximity. Familiar faces appear with comforting regularity. Conversations last a little longer than necessary. Glances linger. Attention feels warm, personal, human, not treasonous, not yet. What Catherine does not fully understand, not at first, is how narrow the margin for error truly is. For a queen, desire is never only personal, it is political. Her body symbolizes legitimacy, succession, stability. Even the suggestion of impropriety can be reshaped into accusation. Even restraint can be reinterpreted after the fact. At Henry's court, what matters most is not what you did, it is what can be reconstructed later by people with ink, time, and motive. And still, affairs happen, not because everyone is foolish, but because systems built on control tend to underestimate boredom. Boredom requires no witnesses. It does not need a conspiracy. It simply needs an opening. Catherine lives inside a court convinced it can see everything. And in a sense, it can. Someone is always watching. The question is how the story will be retold once the watching turns into certainty. This is the world Catherine Howard enters. Not a silly girl chasing scandal, but a young queen learning how power actually works. Through routine, through access, through proximity. Which brings us, inevitably, to Thomas Culpeper. Because this story does not begin with love, it begins with convenience. And convenience at Tudor court has a remarkable habit of ending in blood. Culpeper does not appear in Catherine's orbit by accident. Men like Culpeper rarely do anything by accident. They benefit too much from being exactly where they are supposed to be. Yes, he is handsome. History makes sure you know that. But beauty is not his most dangerous quality. Plenty of attractive men pass through Henry's court and survive. What sets Culpeper apart is access. He belongs. He serves in the king's household. He moves through the palace not as a curiosity, but as a fixture, familiar, trusted, recognized. The kind of man servants step aside for without being asked. That matters more than charm ever could, because the court does not fear temptation as much as it fears disruption, and Henry likes him. Historically, that is a far more perilous position than disfavor. Royal favor creates confidence. Confidence creates carelessness. And carelessness at court leaves a paper trail. Culpeper is close enough to power to feel buffered, not immune, but protected by the assumption that he belongs. He knows the rhythms, the expectations, the blind spots, and Catherine notices him because everyone notices him. He is not a mysterious outsider. He is present, reliably present, which, in a court built on repetition, means he is easy to overlook. This is where proximity becomes dangerous. Catherine is queen. Culpeper is courtier. Their paths cross naturally. Shared spaces, shared duties, shared moments of polite attention that carry no official significance. Nothing improper, nothing provable. Yet, but Culpeper understands something Catherine is still learning. Intimacy at court does not require isolation. It requires familiarity. Being seen often enough that seeing you together means nothing at all. That is how access hides. Inside routine. Culpeper can move through corridors without raising questions. He can appear in doorways without needing to explain himself. He can speak to Catherine under the comforting assumption that everything is, of course, entirely proper, because Henry trusts him, which means others do too. That trust will become very important later, especially when it vanishes. There is no single moment historians can point to and declare, this is where it became an affair. Records prefer vagueness, depositions hedge. Language becomes careful when survival depends on interpretation. But one thing is clear, Culpeper is not naive. He understands the stakes. A queen's body is symbolic, political, dangerous. Any intimacy carries consequences far beyond emotion. And yet, he stays close. Culpeper is not reckless in the way youth is reckless. He is reckless in the way men close to power tend to be. He assumes the system that has protected him will continue to do so. He assumes position equals insulation. History suggests that assumption is optimistic. Catherine, for her part, does not experience Culpeper as a threat. He fits neatly into the world she already inhabits. He does not burst in demanding secrecy. He does not arrive forcing intimacy. He occupies space comfortably, attentively. He listens. And listening at court can feel intimate enough to change your breathing. Danger rarely presents itself like temptation when it intends to linger. It presents itself like inevitability, like someone who has always been there and always will be. Because he belongs, no one questions his presence. Not yet. But access alone does not create secrecy. For that, Catherine and Culpeper will need something else entirely. Someone who understands the machinery better than they do. Because entering a room is one thing. Remaining unseen once you are inside requires professional help, and this affair, if we can even call it that in its early stages, will depend less on passion than on staffing. Enter Lady Rochford. She has survived court long enough to understand exactly how it works. She is one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting, which means she sees everything. The routines, the pauses, the moments when nothing happens, and the moments when something very carefully does. She knows when Catherine's chambers are busiest and when they empty. She knows which servants move quickly and which linger, who notices patterns and who notices nothing at all. Later, she will be painted as a villain, a schemer, the woman behind the curtain. But what she truly represents here is competence, the kind of competence required to bend a rigid system without snapping it. Because privacy at court is not about hiding completely. That would be nearly impossible, especially for a queen. It is about stolen moments, small ones, slivers of time no one bothers to audit. Lady Rochford understands you do not fight routine. You use it. So no, Catherine does not slip away dramatically. She follows her usual rhythms. She simply adjusts them. A door closes slightly longer than usual. A servant is dismissed a little earlier than expected. A pause is inserted where no one expects to question it. Lady Rochford provides those pauses. She lays down little white lies the way court lays down perfume, lightly, constantly, and so familiar no one thinks to name it. Boredom is camouflage. A court obsessed with scandal often overlooks what looks ordinary. The meetings, when they happen, are brief. Always brief, not because virtue is winning, but because duration is dangerous. Signals are given, doors are secured. Culpeper arrives when he is meant to be elsewhere and leaves before anyone has time to attach significance to his footsteps. People like to imagine romance here. Candlelight, whispered vows, soft touches, the thrill of transgression. The reality is less indulgent. Every meeting requires coordination. Every meeting increases the odds of miscalculation. Romance is a luxury. Logistics is survival. Lady Rochford knows secrecy is not the absence of attention. It is the careful redirection of it. You do not remove eyes. You distract them. For a while, it works. Catherine remains visible and proper, doing what a young queen is expected to do. Culpeper remains familiar and forgettable, in the specific way well-placed men can be. Lady Rochford remains exactly where she has always been, watching, adjusting, smoothing small problems before they become large ones. This is how the affair functions. Not impulsively, not chaotically, but efficiently. And that becomes the problem, because efficiency creates patterns, and patterns, at court, are eventually noticed. Someone starts remembering doors that close too often. Someone begins paying attention a moment too soon. Culpeper passes through the same corridors at similar hours. Absences align just enough to feel deliberate. Nothing scandalous. Nothing you can hold up like proof. Just consistent. And consistency in Henry VIII's court is never neutral. Catherine believes the danger is being caught in the act. But that is rarely how these stories end. The real danger is being noticed just often enough that someone starts wondering why. By the time the meetings feel routine, the court has already begun assembling a version of events. Not complete, not proven, but tidy. Explanations repeated often enough begin to look like truth. And this is the moment the story shifts. Because once an affair becomes predictable, it stops belonging to the people having it. It belongs to everyone else. Then comes the Tudor version of justice, the part modern minds often misunderstand. People imagine discovery first, evidence second, judgment last, innocent until proven guilty. Henry VIII's court often prefers the opposite: conclusion first, process later. When they come for Culpeper, he is not surprised. He does not yell. He does not dramatically defend himself. He is removed quietly, efficiently, the way you remove a chess piece once its role is finished. Unlike Catherine, Culpeper has watched how stories are shaped, trimmed, simplified, turned useful. So when he speaks, he gives them what survival allows, enough to sound credible, not enough to sound generous. By this point, Henry is not interested in nuance. Intention and possibility are sufficient. Catherine, meanwhile, still believes denial matters. She believes what cannot be proven cannot destroy her. That belief will later be used to brand her foolish, but it may simply be youth and a fundamental misunderstanding of how power behaves when it feels mocked. Henry, strangely, does not want to believe the accusations at first. This detail is often skipped, but it matters. He withdraws. He asks for written accounts, something solid, something he can hold in his hand. Because condemning Catherine requires Henry to accept something he hates more than betrayal: that he misjudged her. And Henry VIII does not enjoy being wrong, so he delays briefly, then instructs Thomas Cranmer to interrogate her. Catherine is questioned carefully, repeatedly, with a politeness that should feel chilling. She is not asked to defend herself. She is asked to remember, which is another way of asking her to confirm what they have already decided. Her words are recorded, reordered, reinterpreted. The story no longer belongs to her. It belongs to the men writing it down. And then the past arrives. Because Catherine did not enter this marriage alone, she brought a history with her, and Tudor investigations do not stop at what is convenient. No stone is left unturned. Enter Francis Dereham. Dereham knew Catherine before she was queen, and he knows her well enough to believe that should matter. He speaks freely, too freely. Where Culpeper leaves room for shadow, Dereham leaves very little. He admits intimacy, the language of husband and wife, promises made in a world where consequences felt theoretical. Catherine corroborates enough for the court to build what it needs. And here is the Tudor cruelty. What happened before Henry can still become deadly after Henry, because the court will treat a queen's past as an insult to the crown itself. Dereham seals his fate. Culpeper pays for the present. Dereham pays for the past. Lady Rochford, too, is pulled into the light. When questioned, she tries what intelligent people often try inside systems they once understood. She explains. She contextualizes. She clarifies. She believes competence might separate her from guilt. It does not. At this stage, knowledge is incriminating. Proximity is evidence. Assistance becomes conspiracy the moment the king decides he has been humiliated. And then comes the detail that destroys any final hope of softening. Catherine leaves receipts. Not metaphorical ones, actual ones. Letters, words on paper, lines sealed with feeling, signed with devotion. In a normal life, they would be private. In Henry VIII's world, they are a weapon placed directly into the hands of men who already want a conclusion. A rumor can be dismissed. A documented humiliation is harder to forgive. By the time Catherine is led toward her end, there is nothing left to argue. The affair, whatever it truly was in the quiet moments, has been reduced to ink, intent preserved neatly on parchment, emotion stripped away, until only treason remains. And that is how Catherine Howard's story ends, the way so many Tudor stories end, not with one catastrophic moment, but with accumulated patterns, watchful eyes, and a court that never forgets a door that closed too often. So if you still want to call this betrayal, ask yourself one darker question. In a palace where every breath is monitored, where affection is rationed, where your value is measured by obedience and display, what does faithful even mean for a girl made queen before she had the chance to become fully herself? And what would you have done, trapped inside that glittering cage, with nothing warm offered to you except a man who listened? Tell me in the comments. Do you think Catherine was reckless, or simply lonely? And was Culpeper her great love, or just the first person who made her feel human? If you want more dark Tudor secrets told in a calm, story-driven way, subscribe, and I will see you on our next walk through the corridors of Hampton Court.